Thanks so much, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be able to be here with you and celebrating the 150th anniversary of the land grants. It is a particular pleasure to get to be back in North Dakota. It's been a while since I've been back here, so that's always enjoyable to see some familiar faces and just to see the wide open too again, which I enjoy always. Today I really wanted just to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about the partnership that USDA and the land grants have had over the years, as well as really just to talk a little bit about my own experience with both USDA and the land grants. You know, at USDA as a whole, our goal is very similar in many ways to that of yours. We want farmers to be able to produce healthy crops and animals, help them, their operations thrive in a competitive market, and really want the public to be able to have access to healthy and safe and affordable food. And an integral part of our mission is making sure that we achieve these goals, as well as protecting our agricultural and natural resources for future generations. You know, as you know, USDA and the land grant systems have a very close connection. And as today we celebrate 150 years of land grants, it was just a few weeks ago, actually, that USDA marked its 150th anniversary. It was on May 15th, 1862, that President Lincoln signed the law, an act of Congress into law that established USDA. And Lincoln fondly referred to the USDA really as the People's Department. And similarly, the land grants have been come to be known as the People's University. You know, President Lincoln knew the importance of agriculture to our prosperity, and particularly at a time when half of all of Americans lived on the farm. And while today those numbers stand at about 2%, our values and our strengths throughout the nation are still rooted heavily in rural America. You know, today USDA truly does remain the People's Department, and the land grants the People's Universities, and touch lives of people every day in many ways. Through our work on food, agricultural, economic development, science, research, natural resource conservation, and a host of other issues, USDA and the land grants have impacted the lives of generations of Americans, and folks truly do depend on us. Over the last 3 years, our team at USDA has done all that we can really to help President Obama lead us out of a recession and put America back on track to out-innovate, out-educate, and out-build the rest of the world. And research and the land grants clearly have a very important role in that. With each dollar spent on agricultural research returning about $20 worth of benefits to the economy, we've worked very hard to strengthen USDA's research arm, and we've strived really to get the most out of our funding. We've created the National Institute for Food and Agriculture to strengthen the federal support for research and extension, and we focused research really on those highest priority areas facing agriculture. And while USDA has sought to out some budget savings where appropriate, we've proposed making increased investments in some of the most impactful research programs to ensure that America is well positioned to continue out-innovating the world. It goes without saying that land-grant universities play an important role in many people's lives, and they clearly did in mine. As Doug said, I'm originally from South Dakota, which I'm very proud of, and I'm also very proud of my education, which was from a land-grant university, South Dakota State University, where I did do my bachelor's in agronomy and my master's in soil science, and I really went into that field thinking, I love agriculture, I'm passionate about it, and it's important to the state, and wanting to be involved in that, and more than anything, wanted to be able to be outside working like a day on today, being out there. So I still wonder sometimes exactly how it was that I wound up in Washington, but I originally went out there when I was finishing my thesis to do an internship with the Agronomy, Crop, and Soil Science Societies, and I loved it. I loved the energy of DC. We had a little interaction with the Hill, and I thought, that is where I want to work. So I decided to start looking into that. Of course, it was a little bit tougher than I thought it was going to be because I didn't have any previous Hill experience. I didn't have a political science background. I just had this ag background from a land-grant university in South Dakota. Well, luckily, I got very fortunate, and there was a member of Congress who was looking for somebody to take on his ag and trade portfolio, and he insisted that that person have an ag background, which is also a little shocking to me that there's other people. Most of them didn't insist that the person had an ag background. But that congressman was Earl Pomeroy from North Dakota. And he really did understand the importance of, kind of being rooted in from the Midwest and having that education, coming from a great land-grant university like South Dakota State. And I'm sharing this with you because it's really clear to me that it hasn't just been a coincidence that I've had, been successful in my career and had some wonderful opportunities. It definitely goes back, I think, to the education and the opportunities that I had going to a land-grant university. And I'm, very proud of my education, and I think it is the perfect model of showing really what that land grants were put into place for, and really the importance that they do play for the public. Because obviously, as when the land grants, before the land grants were formed, we had folks that didn't have access to higher education. They were, it wasn't really until the Morrill Act came into effect that we had people from small farms, blue collar workers, their sons and daughters that really had the ability to go and have this opportunity to get a higher education. And really, as the mission of the land grants continues to evolve throughout time with the innovation of the Extension Service, serving the public at large and becoming, really benefiting the public in many ways. But as the needs of agriculture and the workplace and society itself have changed, land-grant colleges also have frequently reinvented themselves to respond to those needs and adding new disciplines and departments as necessary. Today, USDA also is having to reinvent itself and has had to many times in the past as we expanded the frontier in a changing nature of agriculture and societal needs. It's unlikely that President Lincoln could have ever envisioned really the complete diverse areas that we cover in our portfolio in the USDA of 2012, but I'm sure that he definitely imagined that we would continue to touch the lives of every American every day. And the People's Department is now involved in everything from safeguarding international agricultural trade to nutrition assistance and school lunch programs, animal disease issues, agricultural economics, invasive pest eradication campaigns, food safety, research, soil conservation, protection of our forests and our natural resources, crop improvement, animal welfare, and biotechnology, and the list goes on and on. That was one of the things I think I was most surprised by when I went to USDA, was just how I continued to be surprised, really, the reach and the impact that we do have. And those, are really just to name a few. And really, as we reflect on the 150th anniversary of the land grants and of USDA, we should also celebrate the fact that this strong partnership that has really continued to grow and has continued to remain strong between the states and the federal government, and really continues to drive our educational efforts aimed at addressing our nation's most critical challenges. Today at the Department of Agriculture, we partner with more than 100 state colleges and universities, which have graduated more than 20 million students, produced countless scientific breakthroughs, vastly increased agricultural productivity, and improved the lives of people everywhere. 1 out of 12 jobs is still related back to agriculture. So even though we don't have as many folks actually living on the farm, it still is amazing to me, really, the impact that has on our economy. And really, when we look at the economy right now, ag is one of the things helping us to really turn the corner there. Ag continues to be a bright spot in our economy. Last year we had $137 billion worth of ag exports, which is really, really helping to drive our jobs here too. I think it's 1.15 million jobs came as a result of those exports. So making sure that we're staying a step ahead and keeping our ag safe here, as well as helping to promote it abroad, continues to be such an important aspect. I'd also like just to take a moment to kind of highlight how USDA, one of USDA's agency, the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, or APHIS, which I oversee within our mission area of marketing and regulatory programs, is involved with many of the land-grant universities, especially here in the Great Plains states. APHIS itself, I think, has to be one of the most diverse agencies at USDA because we range from things like, again, just keeping agriculture safe, both on the plant and animal health side, to also biotechnology and the deregulation of those products, to also having wildlife management and animal care and welfare issues. So I think really anytime there's anything completely random, I'm always sure that it falls under APHIS. But I've loved getting to work there too because I think the people really are committed to it because it is such an important and core mission, really just keeping agriculture safe. So I'm always encouraged by when I'm interacting with folks throughout APHIS, how seriously they take their job and really how they're dedicated to it and making sure that we are keeping ag safe. And a lot of that goes into the work that we do with land grants. And really those relationships are just as varied as our mission within APHIS. For example, APHIS cooperates with animal health diagnostic labs at many land-grant universities, including those in the Great Plains states, through the National Animal Health Laboratory Network. And the national network of labs helps protect farmers and ranchers by providing expanded diagnostic and surveillance capabilities for both the endemic and foreign animal diseases. APHIS and its university cooperators also are involved in the efforts really to protect our nation's plants and trees. As someone who hails from South Dakota, I was very excited that we've had South Dakota State University agree in their entomology department to house one of our APHIS employees to work with them on early detection and outreach of the emerald ash borer in the eastern part of the state, because obviously that is something that is unfortunately getting closer and closer to here. We just actually were out in one of the parks this morning in Fargo hanging a trap and talking a little bit about the importance of early detection and then having the public be aware, because unfortunately trees are kind of a specialty here, unfortunately, and versus the west or east coast where we've got an abundance of them. So that's one area where we continue to collaborate with them. And APHIS is also collaborating with land-grant universities and research that supports and continued really just at health of American agriculture and our producers. These cooperative research efforts include work on the risk of avian influenza in wild birds, reducing the damage of blackbirds caused to sunflower crops, which is always a fun one in North Dakota, developing biological control methods for invasive weeds, and certainly no one in the plains needs to know about the damage that grasshoppers can do too. I was just talking to folks that out in the west, it's looking pretty bad this year. So we've actually do some work with Utah State as well as researching different methods to help practice biological control of these grasshoppers. But another thing too that we really have to do is, as we kind of continue to go through our path, is again reinvent ourselves, help to streamline, get up to date, not lag in the past, but really look to the future. And a couple of things that I've been really impressed with APHIS on as well is that, like your institution, we really have to look at how we can improve that customer service with our constituents and our stakeholders. And the Secretary Vilsack has really pushed us to look at that, how we can make our USDA a USDA of tomorrow, making it more customer-focused, stakeholder-focused. And we've really been able to do that with a host of programs, actually streamlining them, really with the ultimate goal in mind of helping farmers, ranchers, and businesses really continue to be competitive in rural America. And some of these improvements really that we've been able to do is to expedite and improve the delivery of APHIS's products and services, really help businesses to respond more quickly to market demands, as well as help them to create jobs. And more than anything too, the Secretary has really been focused on results, which this is going to help us give. For example, APHIS identified several ways to reduce the times throughout the veterinary biologic licensing process. We were able to actually reduce that by 100 days, which was a 20% decrease, because we've been hearing from industry that the timeline was just too uncertain, and they were having a hard time really planning out. Another big one that we streamlined was our deregulation process of biotech products, where we actually went and took a hard look. Okay, why did we do it this way in the past? Asking the questions of, if the answer was, well, just because we always did it, then taking a harder look and saying, well, how can we do this? If we keep one person working on just one project, does that streamline it versus having them jump around? And with that, we were actually able to get the time down, we think, to just a little over a year versus an average of 3 years that it took in the past. So that was something that we really wanted to do, again, streamlining it to make it the most efficient, but also making it more transparent while still keeping the integrity of the process intact. And this new approach, also actually gives the public an opportunity to comment earlier too, just on the petition itself, helping us to be able to know how we need to frame our analysis of the product as well going forward. So we're also trying to bring the public in at an earlier time as well. APHIS is also partnered with research laboratories here at NDSU in Ohio State on another streamlining effort, which is called the Super Containment Facility Inspection Process. And this is where research institutions with many laboratories that import or move high-risk pests and plant pests and pathogens are typically required to have several such inspections throughout the year. So understanding that can obviously disrupt research and also be a strain on resources, we've come up with this streamlined process, and under the Super Containment Facility inspection process, APHIS and state inspectors are more efficiently really being able to look at this, come into the building, hopefully get it done just in one day, and then going forward, the laboratories would only have to be re-inspected once every 3 years. So that's obviously another way really where we're trying to work together, be more efficient, and look to the future and how we can work together. And those are just 2 examples of how we've streamlined, reinvented ourselves, as well as worked very closely with land-grant universities, really to, again, help support the growth and productivity of our nation's agriculture. One thing, though, I think, which presents kind of a big challenge for the future is continuing to get folks and the next generation engaged and interested in agriculture, both in the land grants as well as within USDA as well. We have a program within APHIS called Ag Discovery, where it's a 2 to 4 week program in the summer where we bring in middle school and high school students to a college campus, and we go kind of hands-on, teaching them about some agricultural issues, how they can trying to get them engaged and interested going forward, because I think the more that we see the population moving more urban and more generations further from the farm, we're certainly having more of an uphill battle with trying to get people interested in these fields and careers. So that's one way that we've tried to do this. That program now is we have 17 programs in 16 different states, and we actually are able to reach about 264 kids in that program. So that's at least a good start to try to gauge their interest. I know actually it was a land-grant university, the University of Minnesota actually, that had a program that opened my eyes when I was in college. I did an exchange program through the University of Minnesota called the Minnesota Agricultural Student Trainee Program, where I was a Spanish minor, and so I wanted to go somewhere where I could better my Spanish, but also make sure I was still working on agriculture. And that program was the perfect fit for that. I went down and worked in Argentina on a farm for 3 months, and it really opened my eyes to the world and just really how agriculture isn't that different in some places. And we've got some big competitors out there for the future, that's for sure. But those kind of programs I thought I'm happy to see those kind of things still continue, because I think it really is good to get the next generation interested in agriculture. Internships are obviously another way that we're trying to bring people in. Last year we had a summer, our mission area had about 131 interns that we were able to bring in for exposing them to our different programs and trying to get them engaged too. But as we go forward, I'm sure that is going to be a continued challenge in trying to engage folks. But really the examples that I've shared are just a small representation of USDA's vision for an investment in the future in our nation's agriculture, and in close partnership with the land-grant universities. really as a society, as we collectively have a collective challenge of also meeting the massive nutritional needs of an ever-expanding world population, and we'll need to continue to be innovative and to balance that increased agricultural demand while still making sure that we're protecting our resources here at home. At the same time, in an era of limited federal resources and budget cuts, fewer resources are seemingly available to meet those challenges, which also, I think, pushes us to really be focused on our goals and our missions. And for this reason, both the USDA and land grants are challenged with, yet again, reinventing, rethinking, and re-envisioning how we want to carry out our respective missions. It is all the more important, really, that we continue to apply science and technology to the problems that we face, really promoting scientific integrity and teaching that new generation of agriculturalists, scientists, and educators, and then disseminating that information out into the public. 150 years after their formation, USDA and the land-grant universities are very much conjoined in their mission and activities. Today, we are celebrating a very special anniversary and a very special partnership between USDA and the land-grant institutions. And we reaffirm, really, that mutual commitment to a proud tradition of democracy, productivity, and innovation. It's really been a pleasure to get to see how USDA works really closely with the land grants and just really the reach that we have. Again, not just talking about the future generations of trying to get folks interested in agriculture, but I see, especially in Washington and in the last Farm Bill in particular, where we had that increasing urban population and trying to convince them of really what was that importance of agriculture, that really 89% of the food that we're eating here in the country, we're producing here in the country, that it goes beyond just, the cornfields and the wheat fields, that is actually the, orange juice on your table, it's the cotton shirt you're wearing. It's all of that goes into people's lives every day. So that, it's been a pleasure to be here with you all today, and I've really had a wonderful time getting to be back in North Dakota. And I know that USDA looks forward to many more years of partnerships with the land grants in the future.